guys, it's Brienne from the Happy Doxy, and today I'm going to show you how to do a wood graining technique with all CrystaLac products, including the Clear Gel Stain and the Color Boutique pigments. So the first thing we need to do is talk about supplies. Of course, you want something to apply everything to. I used a stainless steel tumbler. You can use glass or acrylic for this method as well. Just make sure whatever you use is well prepped, which means 220 or lower grit sandpaper to make sure that it has plenty of surface to grip onto and that any sort of clear coating has been removed from your cup. And then I did 2 coats of plain universal white to prep my cup. Then you're going to want to paint your cup with a light to medium brown color base. You can do this with spray paint. If you have spray paint you want, just make sure you allow it to gas off for at least 48 hours before moving on. And for this, I used universal white that I tinted with the number 6 and the number 8 pigments to give me a medium brown. You can see that in the first steps, what color I base coated my cup, but 1 to 2 coats for your brown base coat. You can start with white, but it will impact the overall color of your cup. I really like starting with the brown, just something in the range of a chocolate milk color. Really lends well and keeps you from having to do too many layers for these cups. So then of course you're going to need gel stain. I used the Clear Gel Stain from CrystaLac. I really like the clear option because I can tint it to whatever color I want. However, it is totally okay to use their pre-mixed stains the exact same way I use the clear stains in this tutorial. You can even use the pigments in step 3 to darken your pre-made gel stains if you'd like, but that's totally okay as well. But the clear gel stain or one of the water-based gel stains from CrystaLac is great. And then if you are using the clear, you'll want pigments. I used number 3, number 6, and number 7 for the stain color that I made to get the stain color on this cup. And I will give you the recipe that I used both initially and to darken it a bit as we go through the tutorial. And then finally, brushes. I used a Taklon brush from CrystaLac just to apply my gel stain initially. And then I used a 5/8 inch flat stencil brush from Craftsmart, which I got at Michael's. Any sort of firm bristled brush will do just fine. A lot of people use cheap chip brushes from the hardware store. Just make sure it is firm bristled. That'll give you the best graining techniques. And then I just used a number 10 flathead acrylic brush and a 5-0 acrylic brush that's a little bit small and a little bit flat-ended as well. But just whatever you have around to play around with, see what kind of techniques they give you. It doesn't matter, it's totally fluid. You can do whatever you want with this. Just make sure you have a firm bristled brush to do your main graining techniques. And then of course you'll want Brite Tone to finish it off. You can use it in either gloss or matte, and I will show you both finishes at the end of the video. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is mix up our stain color. I'm going to be using the Clear Gel Stain, and I'm going to just gently stir it into the bottle. I just turn it so that I don't introduce too many bubbles. This does like to create a lot of bubbles, so I try and be really careful with it, and then once I finish mixing it, I let it sit for a little bit so that it doesn't, it gives it a chance for the bubbles to settle. So I'm going to actually put my pigments in first and then add my stain. I'm going to be doing a recipe based on the dark oak. So I need 1 drop of number 3, 8 drops of number 6, and 16 drops of number 7 for the mixture that I'm making. So I've already mixed these up, but you're going to want to shake them really well to get them fully incorporated. Put your finger on the lid to keep the lid from flying off if you need to. And then I like to put it into the cup first so that if there's any issues, I can fix it without having a whole batch mixed. So this is going to be 1 drop of number 3. That was 2. but a little one. This is not an exact science because we're just using drops. We're not actually measuring anything. Next is 8 drops of number 6. The pigment has probably settled on the bottom a bit. I'm going to just very carefully and slowly mix this up before I add it to my cup. So this cup has 2 layers of universal white on it, and then 1 layer of universal white tinted with number 6, which is the brown, and number 8, which is like the black dark gray color. Normally I just do number 6 or number 6 and number 7, but I wanted a little bit of a darker base. So first I'm gonna add it to my spinner. Now the reason I like to let it spin for a bit is because it does have a tendency to self-level because it's a liquid, especially when you put it on the turner, or if you have it hanging, it could drip. So what I'm going to do is use initially this tack-on brush. This is just the tack-on brush from CrystaLac, and then I'm going to dip and drip because I don't want to add any bubbles. If I do get bubbles, they'll pop for the most part, or I can blow on them. And then I'm actually going to put a fairly heavy coat on this. Now, not so crazy heavy that it's dripping off of my cup, but just thick enough that it doesn't set up on me super quick, and it allows me to then later move the ink through it. So you can see now with these drips, if I wasn't spinning it, those would be dripping down my cup just because it's very thin. So it has been right about 10 minutes, and at 5 minutes I did check it and I was getting some drip marks like this. So what I just did was took my tack-on brush, which I hadn't washed yet, just left it out, and just went like this all around the cup to kind of spread it out. So now this is after another 5 minutes of that happening, and it is still a little bit damp, but we're just going to play around with it at this point. So I'm going to pull it off of my turner. And you can see where the color is. Okay, so my brushes. I have a cheap chip brush, but the bristles really aren't very firm. What you want is a firm bristled chip brush. So I don't really like this one that much, but I occasionally use it. This is my favorite. This is a 5/8 inch Craft Smart stencil brush, so it's very firm bristles. It is a flat top brush made for stenciling. I got it at Michael's. It came with a smaller one as well, and I really, really like this for my wood grains. And then I just have 2 smaller brushes to play around with. So we let this set up so that it stops self-leveling when we go through it. And now that it's starting to set up, I can just take my stencil brush and I just initially go down and kind of even out this stain. You do want to be careful at the tops and the bottoms because those deposits of color will stay that way if you don't spread them out. Now this, sorry I keep going off camera. This has a little bit of a lip on it, So I'm just gonna brush and move all of this pigment off of that lip and then kind of disperse it out. I think it's trying to make its way back down. So we're just gonna brush that. Now from here, you have about 10 minutes really to work with this after letting it sit for about 10 minutes. But as soon as you start to feel it really resisting, you just wanna stop. You don't wanna overwork this or you can run into issues. Okay, so now we can just play around with it. So one of the things I like to do is draw a line all the way down, and then I will go toward the center like that. And that, I don't know how well this is gonna show up. Let me turn this big light off because it's really full of glare. There, that might help. So then it kind of gives a look like that. Let me see, I'm just trying to figure out what's the best lighting for you guys to be able to see this. If you don't like it, you can just go over it again with the brush and keep working. So you can go up and stop and get some color deposits like that, gradually. And move this around a bit. You can use the side and get some white and then go over it a little bit lighter, and you can get some darker deposits. And just kind of blend in the other area. Or you can also leave it a little bit lighter, and then when you go over it with your next coats, that will give it some dimension. So you can leave it a little bit lighter like that. So I just keep playing around with it. If you use these lighter brushes, so this is just a flat brush, and you can bring it down to get some deposits. I'll show you with the actual gel stain too. Or with the light one, you can take some of your gel stain and just dip it in, and then you can bring it up and get some deposits in there. You can do little tiny knots with it, and then take the bigger one and kind of go around it and work on knots. Can you even see that? I think so. Okay, so I'm just gonna dip this in just a little tiny bit and go around it again, and I'm gonna try and get some darker colors. Really just play with it. That's what I really like about the gel stain, is if you give it a little bit of time to set up, then you can just keep moving it around and playing with it and getting different looks. So I'm gonna leave just a plain kind of streaky line so you guys can see how that looks. I've got kind of, I'm gonna redo this, but kind of some pattern by going like that. And then we'll just keep moving it around. Just use the different sides of the brush and just keep playing around with it. So I'm going to let this be. I'm going to put it on my dry rack and let it dry for the 4 hours, and then we will come back and do another layer similar to this, and then for our last layer we will darken up our stain. So keep your stain in an airtight container and we will be back in a little bit. It has been 4 hours since we put the wood grain on our cup, and here is where we're at. So you can see some of the different lines in the kind of decoration, I guess, that I did with different graining. And here is where I kind of took some of the paint off and left it a little bit lighter. So for the second coat, we're going to be doing it the same way as we did the first one. We're going to apply it on. We're going to wait 6 to 10 minutes this time because I'm not going to do quite as much on this coat as I did the first one. So 6 to 10 minutes, I'll set an alarm for 6, check it, and then decide if I need to wait longer, and then we will grain it again. And now we're going to add our third and final coat. I could probably stop here and start putting Brite Tone on it, and that would be just fine, but I like to give it a little bit of extra richness by doing a third coat that's a little bit darker. So actually, before I put this on it, just so you can see a little bit better, let's do this. So I have my stain from before, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of, I think, now I don't have any recipes for this or anything, I just kind of do it and play around with it, but I think I'm going to add some 6 and 7 into this. So I'm going to shake them up really well, and then I'm going to get a piece of paper, and I'm just going to do, I'll just use this little, actually I could probably even use my stir stick. I'm just going to do, give this a little stir, and let's make sure it's in the view. There we go. I'm going to give it a little bit of stir and then draw it down on this paper just so I know where I'm starting from. And then, whoop, I'm going to spill it everywhere. Good thing we don't need too much for this. I'm actually going to try and put this back in there. With some glitter to boot, but that's okay. That's what happens. All right, so now we have a plenty big sample of where we're at. I'm gonna add, let's do 4, since we don't have a whole lot left in here. Or rather, we don't have as much as we started with. So I'm gonna add 4 number 7. This has got some stuff on it. And let's say, let's go ahead and just do 4 number 6 as well. Or 5. 5 number 6, 4 number 7 added to our initial mix that now has some nice pretty glitter in it. Now I'm just doing this for this tutorial. If this wasn't for me, then I probably would have to strain out that glitter and that would be a much longer video, but for the sake of right now, actually let me stir that a little bit more. So that if, I don't know how well you can tell, but it definitely has a darker, more brown color where this is a little bit more of a yellow. I think I'm going to go ahead and let's do 3 more number 7. mix it up, and that should be good. We don't want to completely change the color. We just want to make it a little bit darker to give it that dimension. And that is definitely darker. Okay, so we're going to stick with that. Now we're going to be doing the same thing that we did last time. You guys have been following along, you know where I'm going with this. So we're going to add it with our tack-on brush. We're going to let it spin for 6 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to do our last wood grain.